What I want to start with is HCC's plan to 2025. If we're looking forward and we want to work out how Wales can play its part in a global food industry, then I think starting from our plan is a good place. And one of the things that we need to help do in our plan to make you successful is to make you profitable. So hopefully we've put together a plan that will pull some levers that will help your profitability. And remember, I'm the accountant in the room, so I look at these things from a numbers perspective. And currently, we have an industry that is vulnerable to shocks and vulnerable to change. Currently, the EU support element represents about 20% of your turnover. Probably represents near 80% of your profitability, but 20% of your turnover. So if we want to make you more resilient and more profitable, we need to somehow try and squeeze out of the market and costs around 20%. Very ambitious, but that needs to be our objective. So we've put together a plan that looks at how we can make markets work better, put together a plan that hopefully can improve quality and take some cost out of your businesses. And at the same time, we've done a little bit of Brexit contingency planning within that plan, just in case worst case scenario comes to pass. And I'll come back to that. So, in terms of the market, what we want to try and do is make sure with this wonderful high quality product that we have, it's always positioned in premium segments of the market. So we don't want to race to the bottom. We don't want to be competing with lower cost proteins or lower cost production systems. What we want to do is have Welsh lamb and Welsh beef always outperforming the market, always positioned in premium supermarkets or high-level food service establishments. And the PGI status helps us do that enormously. We've now got a bit of technology you can see there from Oritane, which looks at the DNA of products, so we can always test and prove if it says it's Welsh beef or Welsh lamb, that it is. Next element is driving exports. We know that if we are successful in driving exports and exporting a greater proportion of our production, that if you look at the graph on the right-hand side of the slide, the better we are at exporting, the higher the farm gate price. There's almost a direct correlation between the two. So the blue bars are export tonnages, the red line is farm gate price. So the better we are at exporting, the better the farm gate price. So making the market work better for you. So what we're trying to do is three things. We're trying to protect the markets we have, develop in new markets, and get market access in markets where we currently don't have business. So how have we been doing? Well, we've been doing okay, to be honest. We've got new promotions in France, new food service business in Germany, new customers in Italy and Belgium. We've got business going on in Qatar and Singapore, Canada, UAE and Hong Kong, and we've just opened market access in Japan, Saudi Arabia and India. Opening new markets is not easy. We've got a sort of big overhang from the periods of foot and mouth disease and BSE, and opening up new markets, we have to prove that we have this high quality industry that we all know we have, but has that reputation from the past. So this is hard work and it's slow progress. I make no apologies for that. But actually in 2017, exports were up 17%. Exports in 2018, probably flat, might even have declined a little bit, but that's more to do with availability of product. And, you know, the productivity was down in 2018 as a result of all those issues around weather. So not failure of demand in export markets, but more to do with product availability. So, having said exports are incredibly important and probably offer the opportunity to keep the farm gate price up, actually our biggest market is still the UK market. And so What we want to do is optimize our position. That premiumization strategy is really, really important in the home market. But it is plagued by all those issues that we talked about this morning in the main conference. So the issue around flexitarians, vegans. The red meat consumption generally is probably at best static. Lamb consumption may have even declined. It's hard to know what's going on in food service, but we think probably declined a bit. So the long-term trends are not good. But we're not prepared to just accept that. We're fighting back, as John said. You know, we're getting on the front foot and debunking all those myths about red meat production and the environment, and actually positioning red meat as part of a healthy diet, valuable source of protein, minerals and vitamins. So we're not giving up on that challenge. Now, I just want to talk for a few minutes about how we're approaching the UK market. And we no longer have the budget, basically, to go on TV. And I know a lot of people in the past have asked me about, why aren't you on TV? It's incredibly expensive. And all we had left in our budget was enough to promote red meat on TV in Wales. Well, basically, the Welsh consumer already knows that Welsh red meat is a great product. We needed a budget to do it in the southeast. That's where the growth opportunities were. We hadn't got it. But actually, at the same time as losing the opportunity to promote on TV, along came these new digital platforms. And they're probably better for us in the long term, particularly because we can be more precise in targeting the consumers that we want to reach. So we've got some profiles there. I haven't got time to go into all of this today, but basically we know the profile of the consumer that we're looking to influence. We know when they're online. We can target those messages directly to the sort of message that that person is looking for. And we know this is incredibly successful for us. We measure how successful it is by the number of times that our messages are engaged with, not just seen and disappear, actually opened up, the link followed. And we know that we've got many, many more followers, and we've probably had a reach from this in the last 12 months that's reached actively 2 million consumers. The cost of that is 35p a click, and a click is when someone has actually followed that link and read the message. And that is much, much better than the industry average. So the industry average is around 80p. So although we've lost the opportunity to advertise on TV because of the cost of it, we've replaced it, I believe, with a far, far more effective program of work. Just very quickly, you've seen some of the stuff that we've been doing, particularly with Shane Williams and Eleanor Snowsill. Actually, incredibly useful program of work where their celebrity has got us much, much more airtime than we would otherwise have got. And having sort of sports personalities promoting red meat as a healthy part of a good, healthy diet is really, really helpful to us in getting that message across. So, if we can make the market work better by executing some of those programs and strategies well, then what we can try and do on the supply side is improve our quality, consistency and competitiveness. And if the market's working and we've got good demand in the market, then the improvements that we make on the supply side we get to keep. And they both then hit the bottom line, hopefully incredibly positively. So we've won a rural development grant to help us deliver on these areas. So we've got 9.2 million over the next 5 years. And what we're going to try and do is improve quality and consistency of quality, and I mean eating quality, so identify the things that improve eating quality. And we still have a little bit of a consistency problem particularly in the lamb sector. We still have probably 40% plus of lambs not meeting market spec. So there is still some work to do in that area. We want to look at shelf life, because if we're going to promote exports in these further afield markets, then we need to improve our shelf life. We're looking at improving animal health and welfare, healthier animals, more consistent and better quality. And then we'll look at some hill ram genetics, because we still produce too many light lambs. We have a market for about 2/3 of what we produce, a reasonable market, but actually we need to shrink our supply of light lambs down to that viable market. So we're doing something on hill ram genetics. So, let me just do this. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on CAP policy. The few things that are important to me in this is the size of the budget. So Tim talked about Brexit in our land and the direction of travel changing. For me, the most important thing is that we continue to get the same or more money into the sector. What I'd like to see is a program in post-CAP policy that actually drives some of those opportunities that we're looking to capitalize on. And if we've got a post-CAP policy that enforces markets working better and efficiency, then basically everything should work better. So what could possibly go wrong? Well, the spectre in the room all day basically has been what happens. But let me talk for a minute about what could we work with. Well, actually, we could probably work with every variation of a deal. So be it Norway, be it Customs Union, be it Canada Plus, the EU withdrawal bill that's on the table, an extension to Article 50, staying in. All those options would work for us, wouldn't they? The one that doesn't is an exit with no deal at the end of March. So all the contingency planning in the world would not address the consequences of leaving with no deal and being faced with WTO tariffs. So the only way that I can see that could be managed is if we manage somehow to continue those exports and that the supply chain absorbs the tariff. We've seen what the modelling says about losing those export markets. The modelling tells us that we're going to have a 30% reduction in price because of that overcapacity that's created by losing a third of our production that previously was exported. Well, the cost of tariffs on a third of the market, so if it's a 50% tariff on a third of the market, then the crude maths tells you that's something around 15%. If we crash out of the EU at the end of March, one thing's for certain, and Tim mentioned it, the currency will depreciate. And the markets are not pricing in no deal at the moment. So if the currency does depreciate against the euro, it probably will, then that'll mitigate some of the cost of those tariffs. So if we can keep the trade going, we don't have an oversupply, we don't lose those customers and those markets that will be incredibly difficult to win back when we get a free trade agreement. So the best outcome for me is that we carry on exporting and then intervene with the consequences of that. There's no good scenario on this. As Tim says, the supply chain will have to pick up that cost, not French or German consumers. And then let's manage the consequences of a lesser impact from continuing to export than losing those exports altogether. So, in conclusion, yes, I think I can be incredibly optimistic about the prospects for the Welsh red meat industry as part of the Welsh food industry. We're determined, and Andy will talk to you about the growth over the recent past, and we're determined to grow it further going forward. We have to have a viable agriculture sector as part of that Welsh food industry. It doesn't work to have an underperforming agriculture sector as part of a vibrant Welsh food industry. That just doesn't work. So absolutely, there are enormous opportunities from growing populations, growing middle classes within those populations. Some of these markets, we only need a tiny slice of them. It will transform the price here at the farm gate. So basically, we need to get a deal. You know, all of the political capital in this room needs to be used to make sure that the politicians make the right decision and that we get an orderly exit to the EU, because it's not just about the damage in the short term, it's that all those opportunities in the long term may well be lost. The industry may never recover from the consequences of a hard exit with no deal. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Thank you for your attention.